Here's today's First Word Daily Devotion.
On April the 22nd, we focus on Joshua 14 and 15 first, and we're going to see one of the heroes in the Bible. We're going to see Caleb, and really he is the standard bearer. Look at what happens here in chapter 14 and verse 8. It says this, "But my brothers who went up with me made the heart of people melt." And here he is recalling what happened when he went to spy out the land. So he's reminding Joshua of the promise that Moses gave him. Now, this is important for us right away before we get to some of the details. Joshua intended to write his book to follow Moses. And so this is really what happened after Moses died. And we see some of these details coming out, especially in the narrative of Caleb, as he is showing us what is left over from the promise that Moses made to him. So here he is recalling that promise in the past. "But my brothers who went up with me made the heart of the people melt." And here it is, verse 8, "Yet I wholly followed the Lord my God. Moses swore on that day, saying, Surely the land on which your foot has trodden shall be an inheritance for you and your children forever, because you have followed the Lord my God." And so Caleb is a standard bearer in the life of Israel. But here's the point that we need to make. Caleb is not an Israelite. And so here is someone who is of the nations, who is a standard bearer for the people of Israel. Look at verse 6. "Then the people of Judah came to Joshua at Gilgal, and here it is, Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, said to him." Now, the Kenizzite, who are the Kenizzites? Well, they're not Israelites, that's what we know. And then, of course, where does Caleb get to go? He gets to go and take possession of Hebron. Now, Hebron, or Hebron, that is the place, remember, as we're going to look at as we continue reading, we're going to see David is going to rule there, he's going to rule Jerusalem from there, or Israel from there, for 7 years. And so Hebron is the place that Caleb goes to first. But notice that connection is already there between Caleb and Judah, because the rest of this chapter here, chapter 15 and verse 20, focuses all on Judah. And of course, Caleb was a mighty man who accomplished what Israel should have done. Look at verse 13. "According to the commandment of the Lord to Joshua, he gave to Caleb the son of Jephunneh a portion among the people of Judah. Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron. Arba was the father of Anak, and Caleb drove out from there the 3 sons of Anak, Sheshiah, Ahiman, and Talmai, the descendants of Anak." And so anyway, that's important for us to remember that Caleb was able to do something that the Israelites could not do. And look at the description here back in Joshua 14 and verse 11. He says in verse 10, he says, "I am 85 years old. I am still strong today as I was in the day that Moses sent me. My strength now is My strength now is as my strength was then, for war and for going and coming." I love this picture that we have of this 85-year-old man who's scrappy, who just says, "Hey, come at me, let's go." Anyway, this is the picture that we have of Caleb. And of course, we see close our reading on today in Joshua 15, there's still work to do. Look at verse 63. "The Jebusites, the inhabitants of Jerusalem, the people of Judah, could not drive out. So the Jebusites dwell with the people of Judah at Jerusalem to this day." So there's still work to do. And that leads us into our New Testament reading in John chapter 3, a very significant passage, the first 21 verses where Jesus encounters this religious leader named Nicodemus. And of course, Jesus uses this language that's so important: you must be born again. And this born again language, Nicodemus doesn't understand it. And how does Jesus ground the understanding? Look at what he says. "Are you a teacher in Israel, and yet you don't know these things?" And so as we're reading the Bible, as we see the text unfold in the Old Testament, there's something in the Old Testament that leads to you must be born again. Can you guess what that's alluding to? Well, if you remember, that's talking about, we've already seen in Deuteronomy, the people's inability to obey because they have a hard heart. They're going to need a new heart. And that's where we understand this born again language. And of course, we have this beautiful verse here. We have to read it. John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life. For God did not send his Son into the world in order to condemn the world, but in order that the world might be saved through him. Whoever believes in him is not condemned, but whoever does not believe is condemned already, because he has not believed in the name of the only Son of God. This is the judgment. Light has come into the world. People love the darkness rather than the light because their works were evil. And of course, we close today, or I should say next, we close our reading in Psalm 104. And look at verse 24. O Lord, how manifold are your works. And so he's recalling the works that the Lord has done in creation. And look at verse 29. I want you to see this. When you hide your face, they are dismayed. When you take away their breath, they die and return to dust. When you send forth your Spirit, they are created, and you renew the face of the ground. What did Jesus say to Nicodemus? He said that you have to be born, in verse 6 of John 3, you have to be born of the Spirit in order to be born again. And Psalm 104 tells us that when God sends forth his Spirit, they are created, and you renew the face of the ground. So here we have a little more telling us what it means to be born again. We have to have a new heart, a heart that's given to us by the Spirit of God, and that Spirit causes us to be born again. In other words, all things through salvation, through the redemption of Jesus Christ in him, we are new creatures. As Paul will say later, the former things have passed away, the new has come.